We're blessed with a sheriff who not only has a spirit of excellence, but has a big heart, and he cares about his staff. I want to share just a few things that the family had shared with me. The sheriff covered quite a bit, and I just want to mention a few basic things so that you understand a little bit about the Morales family. I had the opportunity on Thursday and Saturday to get to know, and during the viewing and visitation, and it's amazing how quickly you feel connected to this family. Gary is survived by his wife, Holly. As Sheriff mentioned, his two daughters, Brooke and Simone, and Jordan Lindsay. His parents, William and Candy Morales. His three brothers, Brian, Ken, and Brad Morales. Brad happens to also be one of our deputies, works in the courthouse. A grandmother, Romanita Rodriguez, and Gary was preceded in death by his grandfather, Ruben Rodriguez, his grandparents, Enrique Morales and Cochita Roman. In addition to some of the things the sheriff mentioned, the family did share that Gary loved golf. He loved scuba diving, was a certified instructor. He loved bowling with his family, and he loved shooting pool. I asked the family to help paint a picture of me for Gary, because we're not just remembering last Thursday when Gary died. We're celebrating, as the sheriff said, his life and who he was and what he meant and what he was about. So I asked the family, what words come to mind when you think of Gary? And they said, free spirit. He loved his family. He was humorous, considerate, caring, a forward thinker, very analytical. His dad was telling me, even as a little boy, when his father would give him a directive, which he always followed, he wanted to know why. He wanted his father to break it down. Gary wanted to understand what he was going to do. And unlike anybody else in the family, he really broke it down at a very early age. He was always did for others, put himself last. He was very spontaneous. He loved spending time with his cousins. And the family said Gary was Uncle Gary. They said he was everybody's favorite. He was passionate, as the sheriff mentioned, about his job. He was eccentric. The family said Gary loved to say things that would surprise you. His oldest brother said he was the second youngest, but he said he was also the third oldest. He was very humble about his accomplishments. Brad was telling me one time he went in, Brian, to fix his computer, and there was a box over there with all of Gary's medals and commendations and certificates, and it was just over in the corner. Wasn't something that he was really flaunting or wanting to spend a lot of time talking about. Gary had a very strong personality, and the family said Gary was the loudest in the family. And I asked him, what was Gary's outlook on life? How did he see life? And life to Gary was endless. He said, whatever you put your mind to, get it done. And he was passionate, and we could see that as the sheriff described, about going above and beyond. And then I said, how would Gary want to be best remembered? And the family said Gary had a mission that he was on in life, and that was to help others. He would help anybody at any time. He was someone who loved his family with all his heart. At this time, I am going to ask members from his family to come up. I met with them, and I always like to let some family members share something. In this case, I have two nieces and one nephew, and I'm going to ask Nicholas, Kendall, and Brittany if they'll come up at this time, and also Carl. And we're going to start first with Nicholas.
Hello? Okay. I'm kind of nervous. Not gonna lie. So, I wrote something by my uncle, because that is what I wrote. Around 11 a.m., I was called to the front office after doing PT for my platoon in ROTC. I saw my stepmother crying and asked, "What's wrong?" She replied with, "I'll tell you when we get to the car." She told me my Uncle Gary was shot and killed this morning. I was filled with sadness, confusion, and anger. Who would kill my Uncle Gary? Me and my Uncle Gary had a relationship like no other. He was my best friend. We would crack jokes, play Xbox, and do what we just loved the most, hang out. My Uncle Gary was the life of the party. He loved to make his presence known and just make you laugh. But now he's gone. It's still so unreal to me that a man like my uncle can be laying in a casket, but he died a hero. He died an uncle, and most importantly, a father. My uncle was the second father figure in my life, a mentor, and my best friend. I remember all the good times we've had, and always will never forget you. I love you, Uncle.
We all know my uncle as the life of the party, the one that made people laugh, the one with the smile that always brightened the room. My uncle always made someone laugh. Out of all people, I think he was the only one I knew who would confidently show his butt off and show up to people's house in his underwear. My uncle was an amazing father, son, sergeant, brother, and uncle. He has done so much to make this community a better place. I still can't believe he's gone. Uncle Gary, you're a hero, and you're my guardian angel. I love you. Rest in peace.
I have no words to describe how it feels that you're gone. It doesn't feel real. I know you're at peace in heaven, but I wish this was a joke, that if I texted you, you'd respond to me and call me a dork like you usually do. I'm so sorry the selfish person took your life. You were such a role model to my dad and Nick. I love you so much, Uncle. Rest in peace.
To my amazing cousin, who God brought back to be one with again. You made the room shine when you walked in. That light followed you everywhere you went. You were a jokester, a prankster, such a loving human being that wanted nothing but happiness for those that surrounded you. You dedicated your life to protect others. In this spiritual war, you were a warrior for the kingdom of God. I cannot question why God has taken you away from us, as there is a purpose for everything. Your life in this world had a purpose. All I can say is that I'm very confident that you're here, smiling, watching over all of us right now. You magnified love through your soul and did amazing things for us, Gary. Although I was a distant cousin, the times we spent together were amazing, cherished, and always will be. I love you, my brother, and we will all see you on the other side.
As is our custom in the sheriff's office, when we lose a officer, we always like to have representatives from his unit come and speak, and also someone that perhaps knew Gary best, or certainly was a close friend of Gary. So we're going to have two people speak. Lieutenant Kevin Dietrich will come, followed by Sergeant Rob Pettit.
I have something prepared because I'm not as good as Gary. I can't go off the cuff. But I will tell you that I thought the sheriff's office family, part of Gary's family, was huge, 600 strong. Wow, does he have a family that's extended? You're blessed, Mr. Morales and Miss Morales. What a family. Be proud. With that, good afternoon. On behalf of Sergeant Gary Morales' Sheriff's Office family, thank you for coming to share this time with us and Gary's family and extended family. Gary started out as an eager deputy in 2000, working in various areas, as the sheriff said: patrol, special investigations, criminal investigations, school resource, the training unit, and he was a longtime member of the SWAT team. That's where I got to know Gary. Early on, less than a year on the job, Gary wanted to be part of the SWAT team, well before what we considered his time. He was mature. He brought with him a lot of experience from the military with his medical background, and we were looking for a SWAT medic. Gary was going to fill that role. Went to SWAT school, got to learn him, found out he was full of energy, eager to learn. And our careers and our family separated, much like his family, come from all over. Sometimes I would see Gary passing in the hallway. But over the years, I worked with Gary or attended one of his training classes. I was watching one of our family members develop and mature as Gary moved from spot to spot, position to position. During Gary's tenure in the school resource unit, one which I had supervised, he was assigned to a very busy high school. And with his background in investigations and his SWAT background and his personality, I thought he'd be a great fit. With one large exception, my biggest concern as a supervisor was his charming good looks. The young staff and students at Gary's school, it concerned me that this would be his downfall. Boy, was I wrong. He did an outstanding job and was loved by the staff and students alike. Gary moved on to a new position in the training unit after he attained his master's degree, where he was honing his skills as a leader as he waited for the opportunity to be promoted. That day came. January 18th of this year, he was promoted to sergeant. This is truly where I saw the biggest change in Gary. On January 17th, just the day before he was promoted, he was a deputy assigned to an area of responsibility. On January 18th, from there on, he had to know policy, create standards, set examples, enforce the law, and make decisions as if he were the high sheriff. There would be times, in the absence of the administration, as a sergeant on patrol, he would be the highest ranking person to do just that in the absence of the sheriff. When we discussed this fact in training, I could see the excitement in his face. Yesterday I was a deputy, today I could be the high sheriff. He was ready to take on the challenge. One time, and was on a weekend, I advised him I was going to take time off for the weekend. He stated without hesitation, "That's great." Taken back, I looked at him and I knew instantly what he was thinking. He was ready to make those split-second decisions based on what our sheriff would want him to do. And Gary, he didn't hesitate. I've trained other sergeants and other supervisors. Their response is, Gary's was, "That's great." I could tell he was ready to step up. He didn't shy away. He wanted to step up. I sent an email out to the troops, and I asked them in one word or in a phrase, could you describe Gary? Although Gary had only been on a shift a short time, 4 or 5 weeks, we'd known Gary since they started or when he started. We had 10-year guys, 25 years to a year on the job. We had one deputy that was actually in training when this tragedy happened. So we're talking from days on the job to preparing to retire. I asked them to send me some emails, write something down. And they couldn't, no one-word responses came back from Gary. One of the deputies stated, Gary was the type of guy that would make you laugh on your worst days and darkest moments. He would make light of anything. Another deputy stated, Gary was a sergeant way before he was ever promoted. One responded back, I'm assuming a baseball fan, Major League Baseball's motto is, I live for this. Gary certainly lived for this job, his agency, and for those of us who were blessed to be his deputies, his squad. He lived for us as well. Another deputy said, if he is our guardian angel now, we better be prepared for some serious practical jokes. There were many, but this last one truly rounds it up, I believe, with all the deputies and his family in Greenfield. We hope you're proud of us, Gary, because we're darn proud of you. During these past weeks, Gary shared many stories of growing up with his brothers and his dad and mom. At the time, I thought they were just two cops talking, sharing time. But now, it has much more meaning to me. He was telling me the story of his life. I believe that chapters are still going to be written with Gary. And I believe that we'll write them together in the future. Through the period of the day, the most important thing Gary did every day, either first thing in the morning on day shift or before bedtime on night shift, was to talk to his little girls, Jordan and Brooklyn, on the phone. I had seen pictures of them, and I had heard their voices. He made sure, when he talked during the day and he was busy, I never heard the conversation on the other side when he was making decisions. I'd heard Gary say, yes, get it done. Follow up on that. We'll get a detective out there. We'll get Department of Children and Family. But when he was talking to his two little girls, he had on speakerphone. Everybody in the office would hear it. If you were walking by, you would hear it. If you were in conversation, you would hear them talking. They were so sweet. They were the sweetest sugar I would hear out of a phone. I believe that he did that because he wanted to feel surrounded by his two girls, Brooklyn and Jordan, because a room filled with their voices. They would carry throughout the hallways, and people were coming down saying, we'd hear them talking. In some ways, I think he was bragging. He was saying his girls were the most special, and we did talk a lot about you. He loved you, and he knew that the shoes that he walked in to get his educational degree, his girls were going to walk in. That they had the same struggles he had. But he conquered them, and I know you girls will too. Gary had been waiting for the right time to set up his desk at Road Patrol, as he wanted it to be special and clean. I assumed as most that when he got around to it, that it would have a display with his accomplishments, such as a sniper picture or a SWAT plaque, possibly his master's degree displayed or some other awesome accomplishment that he had done. But that day, when I got back to the office on February 28th, sat at his desk, and I realized he had set up his desk. I didn't see a degree. I didn't see a sniper plaque. I didn't see a SWAT thing. I didn't see any training plaques. His desk was clean and had pictures of his promotion with his two girls. Brooklyn and Jordan. In the center of the picture was a hand-cut heart from Brooklyn and Jordan. What it said, "You are the best. Love, Brooklyn, Jordan," with a lot of X's and O's. He was truly displaying what was most important to him: his children, his family. Nothing else. He wanted no other focal point. That was his focus. Gary went out February 28th to fight crime. I'd asked him the day before to focus on a community that was having some crime. It was in passing. About 9 o'clock that morning, Sergeant Mitwitty heard this, told me, "Lieutenant, your wish is my command. We're going to be out there 5 strong." I said, "Awesome, Gary, thank you." Normally, I would have been with him, but I had another engagement.